Hello, my name is Lydia Mae Simmons. I am a singer, songwriter, and producer currently living in Texas, and this is going to be a breakdown of the first song that I ever released. It's called For the First Time, and no, it is not intentional that my first song had that name. It's just how it happened. But this is going to be a breakdown of the process of writing it, what it's about, and the process of producing the whole thing from beginning to end. I currently have 3 songs out on streaming under the name Lydia Mae Simmons, and I hope to be releasing a full album soon, hopefully later this summer. So I hope to have a lot more videos like this coming to you soon, and I hope you enjoy watching them as much as I enjoy making them. So let's get into it. So this song started with what is probably the most recognizable part of it, and that's this didgeridoo sound. It sounds like this. As you can see, it just loops on like that throughout the entire song. That is a preset from Logic Pro's Alchemy, which you will notice if you watch the rest of this video or any future production breakdowns that I make. I use Alchemy almost exclusively. It's just a synthesizer, a library. You can also do sound design in it. I am not at that point yet. I mostly just use the presets, but it has so many cool presets. I love just scrolling through until I find something that inspires me, which was the case with this one. It's the Dark Wobble preset, and the only editing I had to do to it, I think, was I had to pitch it up 3 semitones because it's one of those synthesizers that just stays on the exact same note regardless of whatever you put into the MIDI controller. So that's also why I chose to not use it as a regular bass and only just do the same note, because I didn't want to mess with having to automate it throughout the entire song, but I had to change it up to match the key I wanted to write in, but that's basically the only change I made to it. Then the only other core sound, I call them the core synths, the only other sound that I started with was this other preset, Atmospheric Phenomenon, that sounds like this. It's just kind of like a very high-pitched, eerie sound. I did say on my notes, very intense and cool, but not sure how I'd use it, but I did use it, so I surprised myself with that one. This, I think, was that a bass that no, it's just a pad, but I think it's one of those that you can't use just to play regular chords. It's got like a weird sound to it. Anyways, this is what they sound like together. And lots of people say that it reminds them of Australia, obviously, because of the didgeridoo. But I do kind of feel like it just kind of has like a desert type feel, like it reminds me of the Dune soundtrack, kind of. And the Atmospheric Phenomenon, the high-pitched pad, kind of makes me think of watching the sunrise in the desert. It sounds to me like watching sand like blow in the wind. It's just kind of like a very dry, interesting sound. So whenever I found the didgeridoo sound, I knew I had to use it, and then I added the other pad on top of it, and that was all I had when I wrote the first verse of the song. I hadn't added any of the chords or anything like that yet, but I just started off with the lyrics of the first verse came very quickly to me, and the chorus as well. Also, I'm very sorry if you can hear my neighbor doing yard work in the back. It is what it is. It's Saturday, so of course everybody is deciding to be loud and annoying. But when I was writing this song, it was at the end of 2025, and I was working through in therapy. I still am, learning how to live a more embodied life and not be dissociated all the time or stuck in my daydreams, but actually be present in my own body and feel excited about life in the present instead of things that might happen in the future or like waiting for things to be perfect. That's kind of what my whole album is about that's going to be coming out soon. But this song is about specifically in that process wishing that I could go back to my childhood for 2 reasons. One, so that whenever as an adult I'm having these moments of realizing how dissociated I've been and realizing how to live life more in the present, wishing that I could go back to myself as a child and give her the opportunity to experience life like that as well, feeling compassion for my younger self and how hard it must have been to grow up as a child feeling disembodied and dissociated. I need to figure out more words than just disembodied and dissociated to describe this feeling. But anyways, just wishing that I could go back and give her the opportunity to try again with this new knowledge, but also wishing that I could go back and talk to my younger self and ask her questions about who she is, how she's feeling, what she wants, because as an adult, I feel like it's hard to tap into that. It feels like there are a lot of keys in who you were before anybody told you who to be, keys to finding out how to be happy, being able to kind of figure out how to go back underneath all the layers of conditioning and figure out what you originally wanted. So that was kind of the inspiration behind this song. So I wrote the first verse all entirely with just that in the background. So this is what that sounds like. I'll just let you listen to it. Take me back. Stop before the chorus. But those lyrics were also inspired specifically by my older sister. My mom always tells a story that when we moved houses when we were younger, she, I think, like spent a day or some period of time walking around the house with her eyes closed, just like running her hand over every wall of the house before she would let herself like settle into it. I just thought that was like a really interesting image of like experiencing life through feeling first and just through like a tactile experience before deciding how to feel about things. And that's the exact opposite of anything that I've ever done. So I just felt kind of like this inspiration and this desire to go back to who I was when I was younger and give her the experience of actually having and embody experience of life, but caring about how things feel and how she experiences things in her body. As far as the vocal production, you will see I have another chain. I think that's because initially this is what I usually do for most of my songs. Instead of putting the reverb and all of the wet effects on a bus for the main vocal, I usually just duplicate it and have like one dry track and one wet track. But I think on this one, for whatever reason, I decided to put it on a bus. So that's why that one is muted. That was originally all of the wet effects. So I originally would record the vocals on here, and on that I just have a little bit of EQ, just taking off the low end, and I've stopped doing this since I made the song, but I did used to cut off a little bit of the top too, and just auto-tune. I'm not set to any specific key on that one, just taking it to whatever the closest note is. And I did have to turn the gain up a little bit. I have kind of like a weird setup that I've never really figured out, where something with my Focusrite, which is my audio interface, if I turn it up to a certain input level, I get just like so much static and white noise. So I tend to record everything at like a very low input level and then turn the gain up afterwards. So my vocals always, you can see with the waveforms, they come out very quiet and then I have to turn them up. But then I have two compressors. One is a studio FET, so that is doing some pretty heavy compression on more of like the peaks, and then I always use I guess I didn't on this one. Normally I use the Platinum Digital, but this one is compressing more of the entire track, and that has a little bit of a slower attack. Anyway, I don't really know very much about compressors. I just do my best. But then I would have bounced that, then taken it into these tracks. Here you can see I have Fresh Air. I no longer have the FabFilter Pro Q4. I only had it for this song. That was just a free trial, but you can see I did a little bit of EQing there. Also, I wonder if now that I don't have it, the EQ is going to sound really weird, or if it will retain the effects. I don't know. Anyway, right now I just use the Logic's built-in EQ. This is my favorite reverb. This is the Space Designer in Logic Pro and the Dream Hall preset, which is, it's in the halls and then down there. I don't know why it's at -64. Do I have it automated or something? Okay, so this is another interesting thing. I have it on a bus, and that's just, the wet is turned completely down, and then, what the hell is going on here? Okay, no, so I just didn't turn it off there. Here we go. As you can see, this is not a very organized operation. So that is doing nothing, but here it is on the bus. Fresh Air to just add some highs back into, add some air, and then a little bit of sample delay. This is probably turned down low, and then I sometimes, yeah, you can see here, I guess I didn't automate it. Normally, I guess I just had delay on it. Sometimes I automate the delay to throw out certain verses, but you can see I automated the reverb on the main track a little bit here at the end, so that's why it was on at -64, but then I'm only using it there right at the end. The rest of the reverb is just on this. So as you can see, not very organized, but it does the trick. Eventually I figure out what works. So what I added next to this song was the chords. So that would be these. I feel like they're so warm and sentimental feeling. And one thing about me, chord progressions kill me. That's always the most important part of any song to me, is the chord progressions. And I really don't have any technical understanding of how to make a good chord progression. Also, other sound issues. I'm sorry if you can hear my chair creaking. It's the worst, but whatever. I always start off with the chord progressions by playing them on my MIDI controller, which for those who don't know is just like a little mini keyboard that you can use to put in synths. But I don't really ever know what chords I'm trying to play when I do. I just kind of like find one chord that I like and then I just move each finger around until I find the next sound that I like. So I don't really ever know what the chord progression actually is. And then a lot of the time once I put it into MIDI, I'll just start adding random notes until it sounds the way I want it to. So also not technical, but I let Logic Pro tell me what chords I have made. So the chord progression for this one is D add 9, B minor 7, G add 9, G9 sharp 11, whatever the fuck that is. So that would be, I guess, like a 1, 6, 5, something like that. I don't know. Anyways, this sound is big surprise, another Logic Pro preset, Epic Cloud Formation. And the preset Soft. So that I just feel like is so lovely and warm. And I always have to be careful of those very warm sounds because they tend to muddy up the lower mid frequencies in the EQ spectrum, and then my mixes sound a goddamn mess. But I love the way they sound so much, so you can't keep me from them. I always have to do some pretty heavy EQing afterwards. But the other sound I use, Dreamy Air Guitar. This is one of my favorite presets of all time. I use the hell out of it. It's like a very 80s sound to me. It's very dreamy. Normally I just use the clear plugs for like plug sounds, but this is the pad. Love. Can't say enough how much I love that one. And then the last one, the Aurora over Iceland. That's where you kind of get the pulsing sound. That one is another pad from Alchemy. Again, soft, warm. Anytime you have a preset that's like, it's soft or it's warm or it's lush, I'm going to be using it, and then it's going to be wreaking havoc on the mix. But that's why I'm a producer, not a mixing engineer, although then I do have to do my own mixes, and it makes me want to kill myself. But that's a problem for later. As you can see, again, I do not have access to Pro Q4 anymore. I need to buy it, but it's $400. And I don't want to. So we'll never know what I did to that EQ in the middle of that frequency spectrum. I don't know, but I had to automate the gain, I guess, to make it just fade out at the end. So nothing big. And then here I did something to the EQ. I don't know. And then the IVGI2, this is a free saturator plugin that I got that I use a lot, perhaps maybe too much because I don't entirely know exactly what it does. But I am really not in the habit of paying for many plugins at this point, so I just kind of like get whatever free one I can find and then use it on everything. So with the Dreamy Air Guitar and the Aurora over Iceland, I used it, and that just kind of didn't change anything about the Epic Cloud Formation, but just kind of adds, again, more warmth. Like, I need that. But anyways, it does make them sound very lovely, and it makes me want to cry when I listen to it, so I wish the EQ would just let me live. But that's whatever. That's neither here nor there. So the first half of the first verse is just the didgeridoo sound, and then the pads come in after that, which kind of just adds an extra dreaminess, more dimension and airiness, I feel. So those I added after the fact. And then the next thing that comes in the chorus is the bass. So that is this bass. You can see, I don't know, I can see especially. So it's D, B, G, and then I went back to D for the last chord. So that's the chord progression. Okay, let me just find out. Yes, so that is a 165. Anyway, bass. I bet you can guess where I got this preset. Yes, it is Alchemy. I said it's a very menacing bass pad, which I think is accurate. And again, what did I do? I added the saturator to it. I mean, if I ever had a proper mixing engineer, I think they would kill me for a little EQing I do. This is what it sounds like when the bass comes in. And this is the chorus. that is the chorus. The other things that came in the second half of the chorus were, well, first of all, there's the harmonies, which I'll get to, but this alone is just a pad. I guess it's growing, so I can't really hear it at this point. We'll begin to hear it. Yeah. So it's kind of got a gated sound. It's adding a little bit of pulsing rhythm to it. That one is also panned to the left, so it's kind of coming in from the left, and then on the other side you have Calliope echoes. This sound also love, just like the dreamy air guitar. I feel like this is just like so dreamy, so 80s. Absolutely love it. I don't think I changed very much of it, but the delay is adding like a really cool little echo sound that makes it sound like it's going down and up instead of just playing just the notes. So I love that. Don't really have more eloquent words to describe it. I just love the way it sounds. So yeah, that was the extra thing added, and then we also have the harmonies, which came in at the end of verse 1 and then continue. So yeah, again, I don't know what I did with the EQ there. I can hear too many low mids. I can still hear that, but whatever. With the harmonies, I like the chords, do not have any technical understanding of how harmonies work, though I have tried many times to learn. But it's entirely intuitive, and whether or not they're right, it just really depends on whether or not it sounds right at the end or whether I have to begin again. But with these ones, they worked out. For every harmony track, I just keep adding until I'm satisfied. So I don't have any particular pattern in which I like start with higher or lower or anything like that. I just do whatever I feel until it's done. And then for everyone, I double them and pan them left and right. I try to not pan them all in like the same space. So some of them will be panned closer and some will be panned further out, so it creates some dimension. And then again, I believe I just used the Dream Hall EQ, and turned down the dry a little bit so that it's a little bit wetter. Wink, wink. And then I also love, this is the pedal board, which is in Logic Pro. It's under amps and pedals and pedal board. This is just a delay, but it adds a really cool, warm, fluttery, grungy delay sound that I really like, so I added that as well. I'm sure I automated it. Yeah, you can see I have automations where sometimes the delay or the reverb comes in more strongly or goes away to create more dimension. Pretty much just the same amount of harmony tracks that I have going the whole way. And then in the second verse, we bring in a little bit of percussion, which is always the bane of my existence, but also can be so cool. So what can you do? You can't get away from it. But anyway, I just do my MO. This is the only thing that I really do truly know how to do when it comes to drums, and that is a kick that kind of echoes out and then comes back. That's always what I go to, and then adding anything else like snares or whatever is pretty confusing, but this I know. So this is what the drums sound like. Which I feel like is just so like, movie soundtracks are my holy grail, and this sounds very much, again, reminds me of kind of the Dune soundtrack, but also the Narnia soundtrack. In the battle scene in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they also have a cool kind of echoey kick like that. I believe I did, yeah, I made this myself, which is something that I am proud of. I don't exactly know how I did that. I believe I took, let me see. No, you go away. Yeah, I think what I did is I took this 808 bass, which again was an alchemy preset, and then I bounced that and reversed it, which sounds like a Missy Elliott lyric. Anyway, yeah, so you can see here I had in the region, I reversed it. So you add it and then you can have the reverb, and then if you reverse it, it makes it, instead of echoing out, it echoes in. So that creates, I have just regular kick here. Well, this one also, I put a little bit of echo and reverb on that, and then I have these, which are echoing in, so it's kind of like echoing out and in at the same time. And then lastly I have this 808 bass, which also has some type of echo on it. Pitch decay? No, room kick? I don't know. Somehow I got an echo on that one too. But anyway, It sounds very cool to me. Originally, the reason why this track is called For the First Time version 2 is because the first time I was trying to record it, I did try to go against my instincts and just do more traditional drums, which every once in a while works out for me, but usually sounds stupid. And I did originally try and do it, and then people on TikTok, well, I think maybe even just one person was like, by the way, I think that the drums kind of take away from the vibes of this song. And I was like, thank you for saying that, because I totally agree, but I was just trying to make myself do it. So sometimes unsolicited advice works, because if I already agreed with it, then I will listen to you. But this is originally what I had for the drums. Which again, yeah, it's like, there's no soul there. It's just, like, it works, but I didn't love it. So those just stayed there muted, but I decided to go with the other drums. And I also added in verse 2 a second bass. Again, kind of like a dreamy, spooky, eerie bass. Kind of an interesting EQ curve there. And then I also added, just to kind of double up on the Calliope Echoes situation, I added more of those little stabs. So it just kind of adds a little bit more dimension. The Highlander is a preset that I like. I normally use it more for strings, but this one is interesting, and this one is not an Alchemy preset. This is from the Retro Synth in Logic Pro. I did not add all those plugins. It came like that. Obviously I added the gain and the Pro Q4, but everything else was not me. It's got a really nice long reverb tail. It's very pretty, kind of silvery synth. The other thing I added, okay, I also have choir vocals here, is what I called them. I guess I only use them at the end. So you can see I did a lot of work and then decided I wasn't going to use that anymore. Siri is trying to talk to me right now. I don't give a fuck. That's just more backing vocals that are not strictly speaking harmonies, and those I would have edited a little bit differently. There's a little bit of chorusing on those to add more space, and then again the Dream Hall reverb, because I can't get enough of that, and then it's just panned around, so those I just feel like add a kind of extra dreamy quality on top of just traditional harmonies. And I guess those would be could be considered ad-libs, but I feel like ad-libs are normally just like one track just doing like one specific line, and these just kind of, I do this in most of my songs, just ambient vocals that go throughout the whole song. And then I guess this is the only other thing that I added there, was another pad for the chords. So again, just another dreamy little pad. So this is what the second verse sounds like. Other thing I'm noticing is all of this chopping on the vocals. that would be some manual gain staging. So instead of relying on the compressor to bring all the lines into the right gain levels, which oftentimes I don't really know how to do super accurately, sometimes it's easier to just go through and kind of chop it up and make each line the gain that you want, making it louder or quieter. And the thing I love about using the gain staging tool is you can kind of visually see when things are at the same audio level instead of just having to use your ears for it. So that's why it's all chopped up, is just changing the volume on certain things. And then the other thing you may be noticing is all of this. This would just be a little bit of ear candy. One thing that I love to do on all of my songs is I use this Calm Beach preset to no end. This just adds wind. I love windy sounds, breezy sounds, and I do mean literally, it just sounds like wind. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is also one that I use for wind. So you can just hear it just kind of goes through the whole song. And I try and be a little bit strategic about putting it in places where there's maybe a gap or it needs a little bit more energy, but mostly it's a little haphazard. That's one of my favorite things to do at the end of a song, once I've finished all the hard stuff, and then I get to just kind of go through and add little sounds like that I really love. What is this? Yeah, just a little bit of random ear candy. Kind of sounds like the synths and hold music from the 90s. And again, these are just a little bit of ear candy, and then this would also be, maybe this is playing along with the melody? No. A little bit of to just add a little bit of sonic interest. And that has also got a lot of reverb. Again, took down the dry, so that adds, you know, I feel like I can be a lot more creative when it comes to ear candy. It doesn't need to be as recognizable. You don't need to actually like clearly hear the notes. It just kind of is adding texture. So a lot of the time I'll take the dry input down and just to have it be like mostly reverb. And the only other thing is just kind of the outro. I didn't really do a bridge for this song, but in the outro, this is what it sounds like. For the first time. Rhythmic vocals thing, but I do have it doubled with, again, another instance of dreamy air guitar. It's just kind of doing the same thing that the vocals are doing. I believe Alone is the same as this rhythmic preset. So those are sounds that were already in the song, but I just have them kind of doubling that situation. Also, Curious Hammers is another Alchemy preset that I like. It's like a kind of spooky piano. It's like, I don't even know if you would call that a piano. That goes with I just faded it out because I was a little bit lazy about it, but it is what it is. The only other thing to note, I just have this little, going into the last chorus, I have this little timpani crescendo, which I love, and that I believe was from the loops or the sampler here. It was something that was already in Logic Pro, but that just adds a little bit of that made the transition to the second chorus. And then there was a bunch of really haphazard mixing and mastering that I did that I will not go through because I would not advise you to do anything that I do. But maybe in the future I will discuss that with you as well. But anyway, I hope that you like that. That is my production breakdown of my song For the First Time. It can be streamed on any of your streaming platforms. My artist name is Lydia Mae Simmons. The song is again For the First Time. And I will be back soon with more production breakdowns.